gay Dreadnoks, gender swapping, stereotypes. These are 15 absolutely ridiculous controversies surrounding G.I. Joe. Okay, so I found 15 controversial moments in the history of G.I. Joe. And these are absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to, all right, one note. This is not a political channel. I'm not talking about politics. If you want to talk about politics, you do it. I am not interested. Okay? This is about action figures. All right, we're not going to get political. So I'm going to stay away from just like coming at any of these from an angle of like, you know, too woke, not woke enough. I'm angry that it's woke, all that bullshit. You go somewhere else for that. Okay, I am just going to address each one of these just as like a person with some common sense looking at stupid and just, you know, calling it in its face. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, some of them are ridiculous. Some of them maybe there's a point here and there. I don't know. We'll talk about it. You tell me in the comments what you think. Okay, we're going to start. We start with some gay Dreadnoks. Okay, so what is this about? In the IDW universe, one of the writers, and you're going to see this name's going to come up a lot. Okay, this is Aubrey Sitterson. It's a writer that worked for the IDW line and wrote a bunch of comics for G.I. Joe. Wrote the G.I. Joe main series that wasn't the Hamaverse for a little while. Wrote Scarlet Strike Force and, you know, a bunch of other things. And basically, Aubrey Sitterson commissioned an artist to create a sort of gayed up cover for the Dreadnought. Now, again, politically, like, I'm fine with that. Like, if you want to have gay Dreadnoks, you want to, like, gay up the Dreadnoks, they're kind of gay. I mean, like, there is this one road pig that is like clearly Pride Parade road pig. I mean, like, that is like, and I have no problem with that. Live your life. I am all for you, you know, whatever. So the controversy is though that Aubrey Sitterson commissioned this cover here, and basically said to the, you know, it was like very intentional, like, make it gay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Honestly, when you present the cover to me, do I look at it and I go, like, I don't look at it if the first thing that came to my mind was not that it was gay. I didn't, like, I don't know. I couldn't believe this was an actual cover for a G.I. Joe comic book. It literally looks like something, like, that, you know, I mean, just, all right. The art is, the person can draw, they have a particular style, so I'm not, like, I don't want to, like, badmouth somebody's art, okay? For certain things, it might be great. Like Archie, if that was an Archie comic, I think that might be good. I think if it was for, you know, a comic book that's not a military, you know, line. So apparently, you know, they brought in an artist to do this on purpose, and fans were up in arms. Of course, I don't really care. You want to get some Dreadnoks for one cover, you know, it is what it is. And that's why they're sort of wrestling. They're muscular and wrestling gung-ho, would he be considered a bear? He's not hairy enough, but he's a big dude, you know, I don't know, what are you telling me? And, you know, he's being, you know, sort of manhandled by a road pig, and it's supposed to be kind of sexy. And you got like flames, like kind of flaming in the background from Torch, and, you know, Ripper's arching. I guess like there was something about like the arching of the back was somewhat on purpose, but of course fans were upset. Okay, my problem with the cover and the comic book is not that they put a gay variant cover, which is whatever. It's how suck the comic book is. It's bad. In our next lovely controversy of G.I. Joe, we have probably one of the most famous controversies of G.I. Joe, that the original file card remarks that Zartan is schizophrenic. And this makes the mental health community up in arms. And this is like back in the day. This is, you know, this is 84, right? This is the one I had, so this is what I remember. Zartan's card saying, Psychological profile. Extreme paranoid schizophrenic grows into various multiple personalities to such an extent that the original personality becomes buried and forgotten. So when this came out, this is like 1984 too, right? So when this came out, this was not like now where everybody's canceled for everything every 20 seconds. This was 1984 when, you know, people weren't completely uptight about everything. And but the mental health community was up in arms that they would, you know, put somebody as a schizophrenic and, you know, have them be the villain, right? So this is something that makes him a villain. So later on, they just removed it from the card and everything is okay. Now, here's my take. I'm going to give you my take on all of these because I'm an opinionated asshole, and that's what opinionated assholes do. Much less interesting about the extreme schizophrenic. First of all, I don't know that much about psychiatry, but I know a little bit. He's completely wrong about everything here. I don't think he's using schizophrenia and correct things. He has multiple personalities, which has nothing to do with schizophrenia. Multiple personality, in this day, I think is known as dissociative disorder. It's not multiple personality. That really doesn't make any sense. It's not really a thing. And schizophrenia is not multiple personality. So I think it's just a confusing, like, not really well thought out. But the idea is really interesting that Zartan would be, you know, adopting so many personalities at all times that he doesn't even know who he is anymore. That was just what I took away from it as a kid. I thought it was kind of awesome. Next in line, we're going to bring back Aubrey Sitterson, the main star of this video, to talk about why he got removed from being a writer on GI Joe. Now, apparently, Aubrey Sitterson had something to say about 9/11. And which always goes over well. Always. So this is the tweet that ruined Aubrey Sitterson's career. I don't know if he still writes or whatever. I have no idea. Writing for IDW, and he says this: "Oh, good. It's self-censored national tragedy remembrance from people who aren't even anywhere near New York City Day." Okay, bad news. That's not the worst 9/11 take. I've heard worse. I'm just saying, like. But, you know, then he clarifies, because so of course he got a Twitter bomb and became the, you know, star of the day on Twitter, just like he's the star of this video, and people Twitter bombed him, and we hear, "I'm catching flack for this, but as a guy who stood in the streets of Lower Manhattan where he lived and watched it all unfold, F you." So this is just like, I'm trying to make myself cool because I was there during 9/11 and I really deserve to feel bad about it. It's a really lame, just douchebag take about 9/11. I mean, like, so his basic concept is like, he only like complain about it if you're in New York. I mean, like, I didn't lose somebody particularly, so I'm not gonna claim that was me, but I would say that I live in Rhode Island and I have, you know, 7 or 8 friends that like lost people that they love, like brothers and shit, on 9/11. So I was like, you don't have to live there to be touched by it in a more realistic way than this jackass. Aubrey Sitterson was working on a comic book called Scarlet Strike Force. Now, what Scarlet Strike Force was like a goofy kind of comedic version of GI Joe, where Scarlet's in charge, Cobra Commander's a lady, and like, I'm like, again, I don't care, like, you gender swapping and whatever that, like, some people will be up in arms, and I'm not gonna go there. It's just bad. It's just bad. So IDW came out and said, look, we you know, Aubrey Sitterson lost their job writing for GI Joe, and no more Scarlet Strike Force, no more Aubrey Sitterson writing for the comic. Was it the 9/11 comments? IDW came out and said, no, it was literally that the comic bombed, and if a comic comes out and sells 15 copies, then we're not going to produce more issues. And I kind of believe them, because, like, I read it, and I can't imagine anybody wanting to read one more issue of this horrific comic book. Next in line, we have an infamous death scene in the GI Joe movie. Now, Duke was supposed to die. This was like kind of the philosophy. They were going to have a new leader every time. Every, you know, couple of years, they were going to rotate them out, get new figures in. It wasn't going to be like, let's have 3,000 copies of Duke. And what they were going to do is you would just rotate them out. Duke would be replaced by Falcon, who would be replaced by who knows who else. And the plan was for Duke to die in the G.I. Joe movie, but Alas, when Optimus Prime died in the Transformers movie, mothers raged and Karen the shit out of Hasbro, saying, "You broke my child's heart. My child is like sitting in his room crying because his Optimus Prime figure is dead." And now he's like, as a result, moms contacted Hasbro and they Karen the shit out of it, and they got it so that Duke was not killed. Here's my take on that. Kill Duke. I'm fine with it. Because he is replaceable. You got Flint, you got Falcon, you got, I think, like Spearhead might have been in line maybe to take over. And the revolving cast, there's just so many characters, it doesn't destroy me to kill Duke. I'm not the world's biggest Duke fan anyway. And I think, some sacrifice in the line is okay. We've got, and Resolute, Bazooka dies in the comic book. Quick Kick dies. Now, I'd rather have Quick Kick alive and Duke dead, frankly. So that's more tragic to me than Duke dying. Speaking of controversies within the G.I. Joe movie, now here's one I think we can all agree was a bad change they did, that they shouldn't have shied away from this one. Was apparently you were supposed to see Zarana's boobs. I don't know. For kids. That's weird that you would put Zarana's boobs. But I would imagine it was like a side boob or something. A little side boob. Everybody loves a little side boob. And in the original G.I. Joe movie, there's storyboards of it. She was going to be getting dressed. You'd see her from behind. And she would be topless. But they chicken out. That's just weird that they would want to do that. But I guess I'm okay with it. That's all I'm saying. That's all. Moving forward into... Okay, this is really interesting. So, in this one, I'm going to... this is not necessarily a controversy, but something that I came across in research is that there is a principle that is a controversial idea. So, it fits the type of fits the theme of the video in some way. And that is an actual paper. A legitimate psychological study is done, and someone wrote an actual clinical paper about what is called the GI Joe fallacy. Here's what the GI Joe fallacy means. It means that knowing is not half the battle. That's basically what it's based on. It's like it's a psychological principle. It says like, when people say all you got to do is if you know the truth, you'll behave differently. And the G.I. Joe fallacy proves that no, this is not correct. That even if you know the wrong thing, you're still going to do it. Which is pretty accurate to anybody who's smoked. Like, I smoked for years. You could have told me a billion times that it was a bad idea. And I would not have cared. I knew. I watched, I'd be like watching TV. They'd have the guy come out with like the lung, talking through the throat and show you a giant like diseased lung. I'd be like, that makes me want to have a cigarette. That's the GI. I don't smoke anymore because I've learned because I'm an adult. But anyway, that's the GI Joe fallacy. That knowing is not half the battle. Fascinating. I love that. Next, we have, in going with the theme of moms canceling, a just general controversy that will always stalk a G.I. Joe is that moms aren't crazy about their sons playing with military toys, especially in a time of war. So, and this has come up many times, and this is basically what killed the line. Both times that it's killed the line, it did this because of this. Now, in the original G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe's out, everybody's loving it, they're loving the military toys. Now Vietnam becomes a big thing, there's these protests all the time, and we're seeing the, guys come back from Vietnam all screwed up, and all of a sudden, moms are like, yeah, I don't really want my kid playing with, G.I. Joe, and this is what made them transition into the adventure team, and so now G.I. Joe's not fighting the Viet Cong, he's fighting, or Nazis or whatever, he's fighting, aliens from outer space. Who can't love that? And then the line died 2 years later. Same thing, fast forward, 1992, right, or whatever, G.I. Joe, fighting an international terrorist organization for years and years and years, but that's not okay anymore, because we're at war, and the war is getting serious, and so now we have to fight the Lunartics Empire, and 2 years later, we're canceled. So this is, again, mom's just making a decision. I don't want to pay for my kid to play with a military toy. Here's my take on that. It's a freaking toy, okay? It's a freaking toy. If you tell me not to play with a gun, I'll make a stick into a gun. Next, we have a couple of controversies from the lovely film, The Rise of Cobra. And no, the controversy is not that it's a giant turd. That at the end of the movie, there's a cut scene in which Ray Park, which Snake Eyes breaks out and talks and tells a joke. And this was supposed to be like, an after credits thing. And of course now, Larry Hama said, look, you can't do that. It's a bad idea. And they removed it. And so now that is laid on the DVD extras or a cutscene. I'm not sure if you can find it. Here it is right now. If we found it. If not, I'll just stand there I'm just going to stand here for a minute blankly. Okay. So obviously that would have been terrible. Don't make Snake Eyes talk. It's not funny. The second fun little fact about the GI Joe movies is that GI Joe Retaliation was banned in Pakistan because the Pakistani government found that they were made to look like fools in the movie because it portrayed the Pakistani government as an unstable state and has a Pakistani nuclear installation invaded. They found the movie offensive, and so you can't watch GI Joe Retaliation in Pakistan, which is kind of sad because it's the better of the two. You should ban GI Joe Rise of Cobra for sucking hard. Speaking of bad GI Joe movies, let's talk about though the Snake Eyes Origins, which is actually not that bad of a movie. It's just a really bad take on Snake Eyes. That's my take. Of course, the immense controversy was that they race swapped Snake Eyes, making him an Asian man. And here again, I'm not gonna weigh in here. You do what you want to do in the comments, but I'm staying like Switzerland here. I'm gonna say I don't like Henry Golding in the role, not because he's Asian. I think you could get the right guy. I think as far as race swapping goes in a movie, it's not always bad. It's not. I can't imagine a human being who would tell you that that Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury was not a good choice. You can't possibly believe that. You'd have to be a crazy person. So race swapping can work. I just think Henry Golding was not the right actor. He doesn't have the gravitas that Snake Eyes has. He has a lightness to him. A sort of a lightness that allows him to be. He's a good actor. I don't have anything against Henry Golding. I think he's fine. Crazy Rich Asians. He's a handsome dude. He's got a lightness to him that really lends itself well to a romantic comedy. But Snake Eyes is a guy who has lived a life of absolute tragedy. He's intense, and he doesn't have that in him. Andrew Koji, who played Storm Shadow, one of the bright spots of the movie. If he had played Snake Eyes, I could see that. I could go with that. He's got that feel. He's got that gravitas. But anyway, there was a lot of controversy. And of course, everybody's up in arms. And of course, everybody blamed the movie's failure for, the race swapping. When really, the movie failed because it came out during COVID. And nobody went to the movies, and nobody wanted to see it. And the whole idea of a Snake Eyes origin is a bad idea for a movie, and nobody gave a crap. And the people that did give a crap, like me, didn't like the movie. So that's why it failed. I don't think you're right. Henry Golding, irrelevant. However, let's delving into a little deeper into the controversy. What did the creator Larry Hama have to say? Well, at one point he did come and say, hey, at one point it was floated that, maybe Snake Eyes could have been Asian, but I didn't feel comfortable making him Asian. That was a manufactured quote. I don't really buy it, because actually if you look into it, that Snake Eyes is based on a friend of Larry Hama's. Larry Hama, if you listen to him, he talks about his writing process. He bases all of his characters on friends of his. And there's a particular guy that is Snake Eyes. That's a friend of his. And that's who he based him on. And that guy is, a white blonde dude. He also made the statement, which was very interesting. Basic idea that why they made him Asian was that of course, we're in politically correct super era where you couldn't do anything. And it is a trope. It's like a trope in literature that there's like the white savior, a person who comes in from the white dude, goes into a new culture and is better at everything, right? Which is kind of like the Snake Eye story and is, maybe a harmful trope. And the idea was, well, we don't want to have that white savior thing. Let's have an Asian person go into this. They're still an outsider. However, what Larry Hama said in this particular controversy, he said, look, the studio said that they thought they were going to save this problem by making Snake Eyes Asian. But he said, I already solved this problem, because when I realized that the only Asian character in G.I. Joe was a villain, I turned that villain into a hero, and I made him heroic, which solved the problem. So now you have Storm Shadow is the Asian hero in G.I. Joe. He's actually not. He's one of the Asian heroes in G.I. Joe. We also have Tunnel Rat, and we have Quick Kick, and we have other Asian heroes too. So, but that is the good point. That Storm Shadow is one of the main heroes in the G.I. Joe line from a certain point on, and that solves the problem. So, I don't know. You tell me what you think in the comments below, how mad you are about the race swapping. I say I could care less. I just care about how bad the movie did Snake Eyes dirty. That's all. Not a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think that it just did Snake Eyes dirty in portraying him as an awful human being and wasn't a good portrayal. Next in line, more gender swapping. Yay! Now we have our the main star of this, Aubrey Sitterson, showing up again, and this is one where they did a gender swap for Salvo. Okay, so Salvo, I love Salvo. Okay, first of all, he's bald representation. Where's my bald representation? I guess we have a lot of bald representation. Gung Ho, Roadblock, Salvo. It's a decent amount of representation for the bald folks, but you removed one, and I don't appreciate that. And he turned Salvo into a large Samoan woman, a very massive Samoan woman. Because if you're going to carry Salvo's loadout, you'd have to be big. You'd have to be a big person. A large, not fit, okay, large, overweight Samoan lady.
He's fat, right? I wouldn't go so far as to call the brother fat. I mean, he got a weight problem. What's the gonna do? He's Samoan.
Okay, here's my take on that. It's horrible. It's so stupid. And it's not like gender swapping, race swapping. Is it always wrong? I don't really care. I'm not gonna get in there. But why I think it's wrong in G.I. Joe. If you want to bring a large Samoan woman into G.I. Joe, just do it. Just bring her in. Just create a new character. You can create a new character any minute. They do it all the time. They just came out with Wolf Spider, a couple months ago. They come up with new characters all the time, and you're allowed to do that. Risk just came out from the Energon universe. Come up with a new character. Make him Samoan. Right? Fine with that. I'm fine. I like it, in fact, because I love the fact that, G.I. Joe is diverse. It's always been. Not only is G.I. Joe diverse, it is the most diverse world of characters there is. Really, it really is. It's like you have characters that can represent everybody, all kinds of people, and that was very intentional. It was something that they set out to do. Like Larry Hama and all the designers, they said, we wanted every kid to look at it and be like, oh, this person's like me. This person's from my hometown. This is my problem. Why I think you can't change Salvo into a large Samoan woman. And you could say, look, Salvo is a minor character. No, I love Salvo because he had this crazy loadout. He had this weird, crazy weapon that could shoot mines, and it was like a grenade launcher, and he had this quad, missile launcher, and he was just a weird, crazy, bizarre take. But here's why. This is why I think the ultimate where Aubrey Sitterson just just stop. Apparently, he thought that that Salvo couldn't go in the line as is because Salvo was a big, white bald dude that his t-shirt said the right of might, and that meant that he was, a Nazi, I guess. It doesn't mean he's right wing. It doesn't even mean he's a conservative. It just means the right of might. It means he's a power. He's into power. Sorry, Democrat, Republic, they all worship power. Got good news for you. Look it up. So that is just, can't deal. No. So, you did my boy Salvo dirty. I don't like it. Bring a Samoan, create a Samoan character. Make her really, whatever. Moana, I don't know, Samoan lady. Would be a good name for Samoan character. I don't know. Bring her in, make a Samoan character. We already have a Samoan character, by the way, because Red Dog is Samoan. You want a Samoan lady to bring in next to Red Dog? Go for it. I have no problem with it. But leave Salvo alone. Some little kid in Arlington, Virginia, grew up in Arlington, Virginia, was like, Salvo's mine because he's the kid had alopecia, and so he's like me. He's like, I got no hair, and I'm from Arlington, Virginia, and that kid's like favorite character is Salvo, and now, he's like, he opens a little comic book and there's a Samoan lady. No, it's not okay. Again, and I'm going to reiterate, don't care. I want a Samoan lady in GI Joe. Just don't want her name Salvo. Next in line, we have in the early days of G.I. Joe, they released a black soldier, and this is what they gave him. And it's very clearly G.I. Joe in blackface. I mean, that's clearly what that is, right? I mean, that is Robert Downey Jr. and, that is just not... That's clearly what they did. So, I mean, that one, okay, I'm going to go with that one. I think that one, valid to complain about. Probably not like 96, whatever, but valid, maybe they missed the head sculpt a little bit. More G.I. Joe controversy. Apparently, it's full of stereotypes. Who knew? I just thought it was the Village People. But okay, so apparently, Spirit, Iron Knife, Quick Kick are stereotypes. That this bothers some people. I've never met a human being who it bothers. Okay, let's address these one by one. I'm not a Native American man, and I can't speak to whether or not I would feel that that Spirit is a stereotype. For me, I always thought tell me if I'm wrong, because I agree. I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea. If you're Native American and you were a kid, did you love Spirit? Did you find it what did you think? But I always loved that you had Spirit on one hand, who was very traditional, into the culture. To me, I didn't read it as he was stereotype. I read it as he was a super traditionalist. He was really interested in shamanism, and he studied the old ways, and he got into his culture in some way. And and then there was Airborne, who was also Native American, and was more he was not that in touch with that culture in the same way. And if there was a little brief moment in the comic book where they kind of came to head, they talked a little bit, and you could see, the two men sharing a moment as they were from a culture that they shared something, but where one's super traditional and one's not. And I thought it was an interesting dynamic. So, is it a stereotype? Is Spirit Iron Knife a stereotype? I don't know. But you tell me. Now, Quick Kick stereotype. Okay, maybe he should wear shoes, but I just thought he was eccentric. He's just a little eccentric. He's a stuntman. He probably should wear shoes. I mean, maybe, but he didn't. I don't know. You stereotype? I think it's kind of over the top. Next in line, Pimp Daddy Destro. Apparently, calling Prophet Director Destro a Pimp Daddy Destro is mildly offensive to pimps. I think I don't get it, but more because I guess a pimp is a stereotype that's negative but kind of awesome at the same time, if we're really honest, and that's why we call him that. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think that's true. I don't know why that one. I don't get it. All right, and finally we're gonna address the big one, which is Cobra Commander's hood. Cobra Commander can no longer wear the hood. We cannot have a hooded Cobra Commander action figure in the G.I. Joe classified line. And this comes from Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, who is the man that produces the really terrible G.I. Joe movies. And apparently that he thought that the Cobra Commander looks too much like a KKK member, and therefore was not appropriate. So we got to go with the like silver dome. Okay, here's my take on this. First of all, does he look like a KKK member? No. He has a hood. It's blue. It's a blue hood. It's not even pointy. You gotta have a point. If you had a pointy hood, then I would be like, okay, maybe. But it's a blue hood, right? Not everybody that wears a hood is a racist. Okay? Oh, is every executioner a racist? No, they're wearing a hood to cover their face because it's like an easy, comfortable mask that you wear when you want to cover your face. Is, you know, and if it's such a big deal, has anybody called for the cancellation of the Arctic Stormtrooper? Because that thing looks racist as hell to me. Like, I'm sorry, but I want to, like, let's look at those. That looks like a KKK member, like, way more than Cobra Commander ever would. Like, that legitimately, like, I think those guys are racist. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Obviously not. They're in a movie about outer space, just like GI Joe is a toy for kids and 50-year-old men about a domestic terrorist organization. He's not right. I think it's completely ridiculous, and I still want my hooded Cobra Commander, and I'm never going to stop complaining about it. That's my take. Those are all the controversies that I found. Do you know any more? Did I miss any good controversies? And if you want some more interesting deep dives into G.I. Joe lore, check out this video right here, or that one there.